mi gente. My name is Maria Lopez Twena. I'm the author of the bilingual children's chapter book and animated family series, Mariví, the Master Navigator, and the creator of this new podcast, Navigating Dos Mares, or Navigating Two Seas. Mariví, the Master Navigator was created for all immigrant families, but especially for children who are growing up with two cultures and two languages, navigating life for both themselves and their foreign-born relatives. This podcast, Navigating Dos Mares, was created to help us older kids or the adult children of immigrants better understand our childhood experiences and the impact that they've had on our lives. In the next 3 episodes, we'll be interviewing individuals as they share both their stories on growing up with two languages and two cultures and how they've used their childhood experiences as their superpower today. Thanks for joining our community. Bienvenidos. So we're going to start today with Lily Becerra. Lily, thank you for joining. Lily is founder of Latina Approved, and we're very excited to have you here, Lily. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, Maria. I am so thrilled and honored to be here, to be having these conversations with you. These conversations need to be had. So I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. My name is Lily. Like Maria said, I am co-founder of Latina Approved. I am a very proud Mexican American. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. My parents immigrated here from Mexico, from Sinaloa. From a very young age, I have been going to Mexico. I've been going to Mexico since I was born up until now. So I'm very grateful for those experiences and how they've truly shaped who I am.
Wonderful. Yeah, and you've done an amazing job with Latina Approved, so congrats again for all of the work you're doing, for shedding light on the bilingual, bicultural, and mirroring their experiences. So thank you for that. Tell us a little bit about your background. So you're born here in LA of Mexican parents. Was the neighborhood heavily Hispanic? Tell us about that.
It was very heavily Hispanic. Spanish was my first language, and I didn't learn how to speak English until kindergarten. So I didn't even go to preschool. I went straight to kindergarten. And luckily I would say maybe even half the class was like me. So that was very helpful because a lot of us were still kind of learning the language. And my mom at the time would be like a teacher helper. So she would be in the classroom and stuff. So I think I had a good start in the sense that I didn't feel alone because there was a lot of students like me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Such a difference if you're surrounded by folks that are like you. So did you experience what Mariví experiences in the books, playing the role of Sherpa or navigator for her foreign-born family members?
Oh, yes. And 100%. And still am, still helping my parents translate things at restaurants. At restaurants, we're still ordering for the table, ordering for everyone at the supermarket, at the bank, like anywhere, at the doctor. We're still, kind of the leaders, and we've been kind of leading the household since a very young age. So yeah, definitely can relate to Mariví.
Yeah, so let's talk about that just a little bit, about that role of translating and interpreting. And yes, we do play it our whole life. Do you have any memories as a child that stand out as something that was embarrassing when you were translating, or something that was very onerous, or you were concerned because, if I mess this up, this is going to be a big deal? Any experiences like that?
Yeah, I think going to buy a car, going to help my dad at the dealership and trying to translate what the salesperson was saying and trying to help my dad understand and navigating that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm 10 years old trying to close a car deal. help.
Right, right. And Lily, my experience in talking to other children of immigrants, that is not just a Latino story. I had someone in Detroit tell me years ago that he was the son of Polish Americans. And he told me, I bought my first car when I was 10 years old, and I understood. Others in the room thought he had actually bought the car. I said, I know, you did everything, which is an incredible responsibility when it comes to areas like finances or medical terminology that normal adults wouldn't know and would be introduced to those terms as an adult. But yet as children, we have to decipher and interpret for our parents what those mean.
Yeah. And even reading mail, like they would get, I don't know, some like bank statements or something. And it's like trying to translate that when you're still trying to figure out what the letter is even saying. And it would be funny because they'd be like, well, ¿cómo que no entiendes? Like, what do you mean you can't say this in like, you can't translate this? I'm like, I don't know what it's saying.
Yes, a lot of responsibility at a very early age. I know you were surrounded by others like you. When you moved outside of that immediate circle, did you ever have feelings of being an outsider?
Yes. So even though I had a lot of students like me, I did have to take ESL classes because Spanish was my first language. So a lot of my friends didn't. Like a lot of my close friends were just in regular English classes. So I definitely felt some like shame and embarrassment to not be a part of like English 1 or the regular English class. And I wouldn't even tell them that it was ESL because I was embarrassed to say that because like I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be like everyone else and be taking the same classes because I wasn't. I was, learning something different. And I don't know, I kind of felt less, like I felt not as smart as everyone else. So yeah, definitely felt like an outsider there.
Yeah. And as you matured, did you run into any situations later in life where you didn't have a lot of Hispanics around you that you felt a little different?
Yeah, so my first start in media, I worked at a radio station, and it was like a general market radio station, and I think I was the only Latina there, and so it was very different for sure.
Yeah, I've had that experience too, where I've worked general market and I was the only Latina, and then when I worked on the Latina side, I was the only one that thought more like general market. So it was you're always you are navigating for your parents and your relatives, and you're also always navigating culturally, right?
Yep.
Tell me about any experience that you've had where you learned or realized, the culture is very different. Like maybe I don't hug my American friend when I see her, but if it's a Latina friend, I can hug her. Or because we talk about social bubbles sometimes and how the American way of life, because they're individualistic, they have much more space between them when interacting versus the Latino culture where we are much more physical and touchy oriented.
Oh yeah, totally. Well, I grew up like you hug and you like kiss on the cheek. Like that's so normal. Like when you meet a stranger, like when you meet someone new that you're being introduced to, like you kiss them on the cheek, and that's not something that you do like in the American way. So trying to, be respectful and always, I kind of feel like you're always having to be mindful and keeping your distance and, just kind of like shaking someone's hand versus going for an immediate hug because that's there. Yeah. Cause I've done that before, just like meeting friends' parents and going in for a hug. And even they're kind of like, oh, we're doing this. We're going to hug right now. So
totally. That's like sexual harassment in this country, right?
Yeah.
It's just like you need to keep your distance. Let's talk about that, about you just mentioned about being aware. One of the things I'm very conscious of is that we have a hyper awareness or alertness in our lives. And I think it's because we're tapping two worlds all the time, code switching all the time. And there's hypersensitivity to nonverbal cues. as well as verbal cues. Do you experience that, or do you feel that? Like, I know that when I walk into a room, I'm always trying to figure out non-verbally what's happening and trying to pick up on cues that are unspoken, because the Latino culture is so much about unspoken cues as well.
Yeah, no, same. I think that especially with non-Hispanics, I try to read the room. I try to like see what they're talking about, get the tone, and kind of follow that to make everyone feel comfortable, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that I'm always like trying to just be aware and trying to read people and kind of just fit in.
Yeah. One of the other things I am also very aware of is a concept I call collective listening, which is about, we as Latinos, we tend to talk over each other because that's just part of the communal life experience. You're talking over each other, you're talking louder. And in non-Hispanic American cultures, it's much more respectful of letting that individual finish. Then you can start talking versus interrupting, which is interpreted as interrupting, which is bad manners, right?
Yeah.
Are you aware of that in conversations with American friends or coworkers versus Latino friends or coworkers?
Yeah, I think with my Latino friends and coworkers, I feel more open to not interrupt per se, but just like if I get excited about something or passionate about something, just kind of start talking and just not be so much in my thoughts, versus with my non-Hispanics, I just kind of like, okay, I'll wait until everyone's done talking and then I'll jump in, you know?
Yes. It's very subtle, but you are aware of it, right? I am too. I think it's super interesting. So, one of the things that the stories will lead to is that ultimately, at first, Mariví is very embarrassed about being different and feeling like an outsider. Her lunch is different. She misinterprets things. Did you have any experience like that as a child where you misinterpreted an assignment, or something happened with your family that there was discriminatory behavior, someone discriminated against you, or there were comments made? Did you have any of that growing up?
I think with my dad and his business, because my dad doesn't speak very good English and all of his work is in English. So hearing him on the phone sometimes, and I could hear frustration coming from the other end because they couldn't understand what he's saying. So I could definitely hear the like negative tone towards him and like disrespectful towards him. And so that would make me angry, because like, why are you being rude to my dad? Like, he's trying his best to communicate what he's trying to say. But also, something very clear in my mind is when we travel to Mexico, on the way back, going through immigration, I've experienced just like a lot of fear from my parents, and they're both like, US citizens. Like, we're all, obviously I'm born here, and there's still that fear of like being questioned, making sure that you answer the questions right, like being prepared. Yeah, I think like when it comes to traveling, have definitely experienced that, and from being very, very small.
Yes. Oh, and I think there is I think it is very real, this whole immigrant anxiety. And I think it is multi-generational. We are raised with fear of the outside world, lock the doors at night. Yes, papers, make sure you have your papers, make sure you're prepared. Yes, and I have experienced that as well. There's just this anxiety about ultimately belonging and knowing that you do belong here, right? And I think that's super interesting, and it's unspoken sometimes. It's just given out with the stress of a situation.
Yeah, no, even looking back now, because whenever we would travel, my parents would prep me like, okay, they're going to ask you what your name is, where you go to school, like all these things. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, 6, 7 years old. I'm like, why am I afraid if I belong here? If I'm born here, like, what's the, like now, right? Looking back. But then I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do what I'm told. I'm going to behave. I'm not going to, disrespect authority or just be very,
Yes.
yeah, work with everyone.
Yeah, and be the peacemaker. And
Yeah.
y calladita te ves más bonita. So you're prettier when you're quiet, right?
Yep.
I mean, we're all kind of raised with that. Children are to be seen, not heard, and just stay quiet and don't create attention or draw attention to yourself. How much of that do you ever tap into in your adult life that you feel, did that propel you in the adult world to want attention or to remain kind of quiet? I'm interested in hearing, because you do comedy as well. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that for the most part, I've been more of a reserved person, more quiet, more timid, more like speak when spoken to, be very respectful. I never try to get any type of attention. And comedy has been kind of like my escape and kind of been like my platform to share my experiences without a filter. Because a lot of my life has been filtered, being quiet, being like respectful, being a, lady.
Very well said. I love that. The concept of being filtered. Yes, absolutely agree. 100%. Very interesting. Lily, I'm curious, because many of us that weren't raised in an environment with a lot of Latinos wanted to be American back then when we were growing up, and stepped away from our Latino roots only to return later in that process that people refer to as retroacculturation, where you return to your roots. And it's typically triggered by a key life event, right? Like, you buy your first house or a marriage or a divorce, or you have the first child, or you lose a parent. Something shakes you to the point that I'm going to return to my roots, and you do it so unconsciously. Did you have any experience like that where you look back now and think, that was a retroacculturation event?
I think that, especially growing up in a Spanish-speaking household and mostly having Mexican traditions, I always wanted to embrace my American traditions, and I definitely wanted to feel like more American, even though like it's weird to say that because I am 100% American. I was like born and raised here, but because of my upbringing, I'm very grateful for my upbringing, but still I still kind of wanted more of that American like upbringing. If that makes any sense. I'm like thinking as I'm speaking, but it's just kind of having a revelation as I'm speaking.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, I totally understand that. You definitely, I think all of us have that experience that we don't realize when we're kids that even though we're born here, we're not American in the sense that others would consider us American, meaning employing the Protestant work ethic, being self-reliant, being an individualist, all of that. We're really not that. So we're born here, but we're not from here, right? And there's a difference between that. And then always striving to have that to some degree, even when we embrace the Latino side of us, just feeling like it'd be great to fit in when we're growing up. And then when we grow up and we return to our roots and we embrace the totality of who we are is when we find ourselves and lead a less filtered life, to use your term.
Yeah. And even like I mentioned earlier, I grew up going to Mexico a ton. And so it's like kind of trying to fit into both worlds, because when I would go to Mexico, I would mess around with my cousins and play and stuff, and they would make fun of my Spanish or, make fun of, just like tease me on things because I would not say Spanish words correctly, or I would say the wrong thing. So it's like trying to fit into two worlds, which was a challenge.
Yeah, never Spanish enough when you're in a Spanish speaking country, and never American enough when you're here, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I totally
exactly.
get that. I've experienced that as well. Well, I want to also just ask you, any advice for listeners that have not retroacculturated yet and haven't truly embraced who they are in terms of their bilingualism and biculturalism, and any advice or any thoughts on how embracing that totality has become your superpower?
I would definitely encourage people who haven't traveled to where their family origin is from to go and visit, spend some time, see where your ancestors are from. I think that's super important, and it's really special to see where you come from, because that is a part of you, and that might inspire some more things within you, and sorry, what was the second question?
No, just the how have you used both your languages and your culture as your superpower?
I think that being a resource to my parents and my community, because I think being bilingual is such an amazing superpower, whether you speak it well or not, whether you missay a word or, it's okay. We all mess up, and I think the intention is what matters. But I do feel super proud to be able to help my parents and even strangers at a store when they can't speak in English, and so being of service to others. I think that's a superpower for sure.
Yes, I agree. 100%. And I think we're all much more hypersensitive to other immigrants across the board. And when we see them, there is a sense of empathy, and you want to help them. And I think that's something that we all share as well, which is super powerful.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Lily, any other thoughts you have before we sign off?
Just very grateful for this series, for Mariví. I'm super excited to listen. I'm so excited to be a part of this podcast and to listen to all these episodes. Truly grateful.
Thank you, Lily. All right, you guys can follow Lily on Latina Approved on Instagram. They have a great presence there. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening, and please join us on our next episode of Navigating Dos Mares. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at We Are Mariví, or check out our books on our website, wearemariv.com.